beautiful souls, and welcome to H&L Living with VaShaunna Renee, the heartbeat of inspiration and empowerment in our communities. And I am your host, VaShaunna Renee. And today we're discussing HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, with my special guest, Kendra M. Sharp, PhD. She's a strategist for United Negro College Fund's Institute of Capacity Building. And we're taking a deep dive into college life, scholarships, funding, and just the overall love and pride that we both have for HBCU. So be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, let us know about your college experience below, and join in on the conversation. So let's get started.
Here with, and now wait a minute, let me get this right so I can put all the respect on your name, okay? Now, are we going with Dr. Sharp or Kendra Sharp, PhD? Which one are we going with today?
Yeah, just Kendra is fine. Usually, I do prefer Kendra Sharp PhD because I do not like to get people to get confused and think that I am a physician or a dentist or any other type of doctor. So, but please feel free to call me Kendra.
Okay, perfect. And I will start by saying that I'm going to try to keep it as professional as possible, even though Kendra is my cousin and my soror, but we are going to try to keep this as professional as we can and not dive into cousin mode. But I do want to dive in and kind of just get started and discuss the importance of HBCUs, which you have so much information on. And what we're going to do is kind of start with just kind of giving me a piece of your story, because you didn't take the traditional graduate from high school, go to college, and, of course, go ahead and get your PhD. So kind of tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are.
Yeah, thank you for the question, of course, and thanks for having me on the podcast, on the show. Yeah, my way to HBCUs. I always tell people I feel like I was saved by my HBCU, St. Augustine's University. Now it was college when I enrolled, but I had a pretty tough senior year of high school. Really just started kind of messing around with the wrong crowd and getting into trouble. Of course, me being a first generation college student coming from two parents who were in the military, I wasn't really introduced to college early on. And so I pretty much did flunk out of my senior year of high school. And this was not a situation where it was like, oh, I wasn't smart, or I didn't understand the material, or I didn't have leadership skills. It was just I got on the wrong track. And so once I got back on track, wanted to still go to college. And, I was introduced to St. Augustine's University, who decided that even with my GED, because I totally killed my whole high school diploma, walk across the stage, all of that went out the window, just because of my poor decision making. And St. Augustine's was willing to take me with my GED. So I went to my local community college. I got my GED. I enrolled as if I was a graduating senior, right on track with the rest of my class, and the rest is pretty much history. But that was my introduction to HBCUs. Again, coming from a military background, I did not know what an HBCU was growing up. I had never heard of historically black colleges or their significance, and so it was my own failures and being saved really by my institution that helped me to understand what HBCUs are really all about from a student standpoint.
Yes, I love that. And of course, I too attended an HBCU and graduated from Lane College. So, of course, we have that in common. And I can say for me that one thing that I always say is that it just felt like home to me. I went to a really big high school, almost 1,000 people graduated with me. And my college had maybe 1,500 students. So I went from a huge high school to this small HBCU. But man, it felt like kind of how you feel when you get a warm hug that you're really needing. And it was just, yes. And it was just, I don't think that people understand how important that is when you're going to college, because you're away from your parents, you're away from your support system. And so that's what you're needing when you're in college. And I know that the HBCU experience for me was just that. It was a great support system that I had that I could not trade in for anything in this world, in this world. So I want to say my next question is kind of go into just kind of the experience of someone that, like you mentioned, didn't have parents that went to college, aren't very familiar with HBCUs, aren't really familiar with college in general, how beneficial it can be to go and experience that side of going to college and experience the HBCU.
Yeah, it really propelled me to be the person that I am today. And when I was a student, I never really saw myself going on to the administrator side of actually then going on to work at 5 HBCUs. But it's crazy that to your point, that familial, kind of culture that HBCUs
Yep.
have. Someone told me early on, I think it was probably my junior year in high school. Excuse my special guest who just decided to pop in. But I mean, not high school, my junior year of college, that they thought I would make a great administrator in the higher education space. But yeah, I just think that, you learn a lot at HBCUs. They really do a good job of laying the foundation for students to then go out into the world and be productive citizens. And you can feel comfortable while you're doing it because you see people that look like you who have PhDs, who are these brilliant professors that have won awards and prizes, and members of sororities and folks who have really been in high places to kind of help you envision yourself to be able to do the same thing. So I think that is the important significance for students. And, these days it's getting a little more competitive with students because they do have other options. And I think that there's, like, I don't want to say an attack, but there are more strides from PWIs to make college affordable for Black students, which is decreasing the enrollment at HBCUs. And so, I know one of your questions later in this conversation is, what is my vision for the future of HBCUs? But it is to remain competitive and to keep students from going to Harvard and making sure that they go to Howard. And I'm an advocate for that. I'm very unapologetic about it. And that's just my thing. But let me not get too far off from your question, Sean. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about my work history, but I'll let you, ask me your next question for sure. Happy to answer.
Yes, I do want to talk about your work history. But before we talk about that, I do, because you kind of just mentioned it, how competitive it is with PWIs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's predominantly white institutions. And so what I want to say is, how do you feel? And I saw this, it was a conversation on something else, maybe on Instagram or something. I was just scrolling through. But I heard a young lady talk about how disappointed she was in kind of going to visit PWIs and then going to visit HBCUs, and the difference of, I think she even used the term luxury, if I'm not mistaken, of how the dorms were different and kind of the CAF area is different, and how I guess she had a higher standard for HBCUs. And so I want you to kind of talk about a little bit, because it made me feel some type of way because of the history of HBCUs and why they exist in the first place. And so maybe I was like, well, maybe she just doesn't understand that piece of it. But just kind of tell me your thoughts on how you feel about just the comparison of the two.
Yeah, I don't think that it's a fair comparison. And I think that a lot of times when students or individuals are trying to compare HBCUs to PWIs, they are doing so with an ignorant mindset because they are not aware of the historical context of HBCUs.
Yep.
Any institution founded before 1964 is considered a historically Black college and university. As you mentioned, Sean, they kind of came about because we were not able to go to other institutions. The bigger issue related to this luxury conversation and, oh, their dorm looks like this and our dorm looks like this, is related to systematic racism and the lack of funding. So outside of just the establishment of HBCUs, states have significantly underfunded these institutions for years and years and years and years and years.
Yep.
Public white institutions get X amount of dollars from the state. HBCUs get X amount of dollars from the state, and it is a vast difference between what those amounts look like. So you can't compare an institution at a, University of Tennessee, Knoxville. You can't compare a dorm on that campus to, residence hall on that campus to a residence hall at Lane College, because the funding is so drastically different. You know what I mean? And so I would just say that it's kind of like, what are you really looking for? Are you looking to go on a campus and live in a high-rise dorm or residence hall, or are you looking to go on a campus where you feel accepted, where you feel like you fit in, where you feel like you have a sense of belonging, you can be yourself? I do think there is a trade-off. I think that it's hard to get both at once. Like, okay, what HBCU can I go to where I do live in a luxury dorm, but I also feel welcome and all of these other things? And, unfortunately, I think because of that historic underfunding, it's hard to get both at one time. But you have to just focus on, I think, as a Black student, what is going to propel you for life after college. And research tells us that students who are of color are more likely to succeed when they go to institutions where people look like them. So, you may not have the best residence hall, you may not have the most, fanciest food in the cafeteria, but you are more likely to be successful as a Black student if you go to an HBCU than an institution that just has a nice caf and a nice residence hall. So those are my thoughts on that.
I agree 110%. And I wanted you to give your your thoughts on it without me kind of pounding my thoughts on it, because of course I am also a mom of a junior in high school. And when it came to looking for schools, I kind of only gave my thoughts on HBCUs because from one, I know him and I know the type of setting that may be better for him. But I didn't want to shove it down his throat that this is what you have to do, or this is what, only goes on in this household. I wanted to give him options, but of course it is my hope that he does choose an HBCU. And with that being said, as far as high school students, what advice do you give when they're looking for an HBCU, or do you have certain ones that you kind of suggest to high school students, or kind of what's your process in recruiting, or if you were to recruit, because you've kind of gone way past that point of your career, but if you were, what would be your thoughts on kind of what a high school, either junior or senior, should do in that position?
Yeah, I really like your point that you brought up about your junior and him getting ready to go to college. Let me be clear. While I am a staunch advocate for HBCUs, I don't think there's anything wrong with a Black student that chooses to go to an institution that's not an HBCU. It could be a financial. If you get a full ride to a PWI,
go.
We going to that PWI. You know what I'm
exactly.
So I just wanted to make that part clear. But as far as high school students, I think one thing is finding out early on, like starting your college tour a little earlier. Like, don't wait till your senior year. Junior year, you should be aware of what the institutions are available to you, what their criteria and requirements are in the admissions office, so that you can try to work towards that. This is also kind of a barrier that comes up with parents. Like, if a lot of times, and in this case, your son will not be in this position, Sean, which is a really good thing. But first gen, like, my parents did not know how to fill out a FAFSA, literally. Like, they were like, what is a FAFSA? Like, how much does this cost? Like, where are we getting this money? And they did everything that they could, and they did a great job, and they sacrificed a lot to make sure that I still got through. But, I think a lot of it has to do with parents being just as informed. Because a lot of times we say we're not recruiting the student, we're recruiting the parents.
Yep.
Yeah, you all are going to be the ones that sign the dotted line and that make sure that the student gets through and pay for it and all of that. So it's not really the student that we have to recruit, it's the parent that we have to recruit. But I think the biggest takeaway is don't wait till senior year to start looking. Know what all of your options are. The other piece to that, kind of similarly, is applying for scholarships. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars just from UNCF alone that go unclaimed, unused, because Black communities, Black families are, I think, a few things, just candidly. One, lazy, just not used to looking, then there's ignorance of simply like, oh, I didn't know there was a scholarship out there for me. But I also am one of those people that's like, okay, we have to take accountability and say, did you seek the information? Yes, you know, you didn't know it was there, but did you even try to find out if there were scholarships available for your student and things like that? But that's the other piece. Don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait till senior year. Also, look into scholarships that are available early on to help, you know, that process become a little bit of a lighter load as it relates to going to not just an HBCU, but any college, really, you know? So yeah, those are two kind of takeaways I would say for like a high school student looking into college.
Perfect. And that kind of leads me into kind of my next question as far as having resources. And if you do have a student that's kind of first generation college student, what are some resources that maybe we can give to parents or to students that may have to do it on their own, because that happens sometimes? Some resources that that they can use, or that they can, some websites or something that will help or benefit someone that's kind of, you know, at their junior, senior year looking for scholarship money.
Yeah, so of course, you know, I'm honored and privileged to be able to work for the United Negro College Fund. UNCF is the largest distributor of student scholarships for Black students outside of the federal government. Again, we send out hundreds of thousands of dollars of scholarships every year. And while we do that, we also have a lot of that money that does not get used because folks just simply do not fill out the application. So one, uncf.org.
Okay.
It's full of scholarships for various different things, and not even just scholarships, but fellowships and other opportunities that can serve as resources for students who are going into college and parents. The other is Thurgood Marshall College Fund. We do a lot of like partnership work with Thurgood Marshall. UNCF, just for context, kind of focuses on the private HBCUs, while Thurgood Marshall focuses more on our public HBCUs. But scholarships can be used intertwined. Like you can get a Thurgood Marshall scholarship, and if I'm not mistaken, if you choose to go to Lane, you can still use those dollars. Like, so that's that. The government, you know, just by simply going to, I don't think I have the website off the top of my head, but just if you Google federal government scholarships for college students or something like that, you will be led to a space where you can see what scholarships are available. There's scholarships.org, which is kind of like a search engine that sort of can do like a wide search across the internet to show you what scholarships are available. You'd be surprised how many scholarships you may be able to find at like your local nonprofits, like in your community of Memphis or in your community of Atlanta, that are targeting students. And then the other resource, and probably one that I should have started with, is just targeting the institution itself. So say you are a student who's interested in going to North Carolina A&T. Get in touch with that financial aid office and see what scholarships they have in-house, because those exist as well, to where they're looking for scholars to, you know, come to their institution, and they have dollars set aside to give to students that meet whatever the criteria is that they're looking for. So I think, again, there's plenty of resources out there. It is just about getting a head start and really taking the time to put a nice list of things together, fill out an application. I think sometimes, not just Black families, but speaking for Black families, we get a little overwhelmed by an application process. So like, oh Lord, they want me to write a 250 or 500 word article. They want my mom to submit her tax documents from last year. And it just becomes to the point where it's like, I don't feel like doing all of this, so I'm just not going to do it. And then you miss out on potential money. You know what I mean? So is it just you have to check a box here and there? No, a lot of times there is going to be a writing sample that's required from that student in order to make yourself, and it should be, because to give you some thousands of dollars potentially to pay for your education. You know what I'm saying? So the least you can do is write a 500-word article. I would say another quick little, just a pro tip is have a few essays ready to go, because a lot of the time the questions that are going to be asked of you are similar. You know, why do you want to go to college? How do you think that this education can impact you? So just have, you know, you don't even need to reinvent the wheel every single time. If you're applying for 4 or 5 different scholarships and it's asking you a similar question, you should be tweaking that same document every time
Exactly.
and
Yep.
submitting it.
Yep.
So, I don't want to ramble, but those are my thoughts on that, Sean.
Perfect. Yeah. So we kind of tackled the student portion of it. And now as far as the career piece of it. So you have kind of climbed the ladder, I will say. And I'm curious to know this, if you have like a end goal and kind of where you started and where you hope to be, just because I don't know a lot of people that recognize, just being in higher education, all of the doors that can open for you, all of the career paths that you can take when you're in higher education. And if you could just kind of speak to that a little bit, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Higher ed is very broad. Each and every division and department is its own thing. There are specialists who are enrollment managers who only do enrollment, who are extremely good at it. There are specialists who work in other parts of campus, because it's a whole big operational apparatus, really. There's a lot of moving parts, and there has to be a lot of people to get that work done. My ultimate goal, starting as a residence hall director, working in the residence life, which is a great entry level space to start for folks that are interested in higher ed, is to just be a COO. I would love to work at a small private HBCU like St. Augustine's University, like Elaine College, like a Tuskegee or a Fisk University. And I would like to be number 2. I would like to be able to assist the president with initiatives and goals, maybe not being the president sitting in that seat, but definitely the COO. And so that is my ultimate goal. There's a lot of space for that to actually happen because, everyone doesn't necessarily want to work at an HBCU. I do think it's a niche market. You have to have a passion for the work. You have to be okay with being paid less than you might get at the PWI up the street. But for me, it's about helping Black students. It's about ensuring that Black students of color, have the same opportunities that other folks have. So I'm really committed and dedicated to the work. It's not about the money and all that. I mean, it that matters, but that's my thoughts related to my own trajectory. And, I would just say anyone who wants to get into higher ed, build connections. The community is pretty small, especially at HBCUs, and also look into your alma mater. So that's why I have attempted to work at my own school a few times. Things did not work out, and that's okay. But like if you went to an HBCU, they usually have, all HBCUs generally have a culture of hiring an alum, of hiring alums. So if you're someone who attended one and you're interested in working at one, start with the one that you attended and that you graduated from, I would say, if that's something that you want to do. So I hope I answered your question, but happy to add on to that if there's another piece to it that I didn't touch.
No, you definitely did. And so that kind of leads me to what you kind of mentioned earlier as far as just the future of HBCUs. And so let's say that, okay, you are Kendra Sharp, PhD, COO of one of the best small HBCUs that there is, because we can argue all day about what's the best. But just what kind of, as far as your mindset or where you would like to see HBCUs go, the future of HBCUs once you're in a head position and you're able to, call shots and make changes, and just what would you do differently, or what would you change, or kind of what path would you like to continue moving forward on to make sure that the HBCUs are successful and we understand how awesome and important they are, and the love and the culture, and how, the warm and fuzzies I get, you can see just me talking about it, is is that I'm a lover of the culture and the HBCU experience. So just kind of where would you like to see it go in the future?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for the question. I think for me, outside of the student engagement, outside of the warm and fuzzies and the culture that HBCUs bring, I would personally like to work on our systems. And what I mean by that is creating systems that are sustainable and that are utilizing technology so that we do not have to lift so heavy, i.e., we should not be using paper applications for students to come to this institution. That should be a digital process. And not only should it be digital, but that one process should feed into all the other processes that we have as well. When it comes time to print the student ID card, that information needs to come from the admissions process that was already started. So it would be, and at the same time, I think about that and I worry about, okay, but would that eliminate somebody's job? If we have an entire digital process happening, is there really a need for us to have a registrar? Is there a need for us to have this office or that office? So being careful to think about that, but also it's 2024. We really need to utilize technology better in the HBCU space. And again, a lot of it is not that we don't want to or that we don't know how. It is that we do not have funding to create a strong IT infrastructure to make it happen. So for me, systems. The other piece to that is for the future is facilities. Again, the underfunding that we have went through and the lack of funding that we have received has caused our buildings and our grounds to deteriorate. A lot of these buildings were literally built in the 1800s.
1800s, like yes.
They are standing all the way from then. They are standing. So does it get as hot as you would like the building to get? Does it even have heat in this building? Maybe not. Same thing with AC. Like, are we we need to be able to heat and cool our buildings properly, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are buildings that require elevators and that are not ADA compliant because of how old they are. That needs to be updated. So facilities is another really, really big deficit, and I don't want to ever talk about HBCUs in a deficit way, but I'm just kind of keeping it real in this case. Facilities is very much needed. But then that goes to the conversation around giving and around alums and the responsibility that I personally feel like alums have to their institutions. There is a great debate and a lot of research that talks about how low our giving rates are and why alums do not give. Everyone is happy at homecoming and everybody's happy to be back on the yard and on the plot and all of that when it's time to celebrate. But if I pull the gift report, I'm probably not going to see your name on it in terms of how much money you've invested in your own school. And so it's just like really trying to change the culture of giving. And in my mind, like when it comes to alums giving, it is a fiduciary responsibility that you have. It's not about whether you like the calf food, whether financial aid was rude to you. Like, it's not about any of that. It is about the fact that this institution provided you a home for 4 to 5 to 6 years. They gave you a degree that you are now using to have an income, to have your family, and all of these things. And so as a result of that, you just got to give back. It's not it's not always about your experience. And so I wish alums would understand that more. I constantly hear excuses about, I'm not giving back because the registrar was rude. And it's just like, first of all, that was 20 years ago. Second of all, you still have to, if a person to you, if the cashier at Chipotle is rude to you, I would bet you still are going to go back to Chipotle.
You're going back, yes.
You're going back. You're going to get that burrito bowl either way. And so I just wish that we would look at our institutions in that same light. You know what I mean? So anyway, future of HBCU, summing it all up, alumni giving, facilities and maintenance, deferred maintenance, really maintenance that has been put off for years and really just put a Band-Aid on it instead of actually fixing the problem. And then systems, making sure that our systems are talking to each other and infusing technology into the whole process more so that we can have a better and more seamless experience for both employees, students, parents, and all of the other stakeholders that engage with our institutions.
Yes, I absolutely love that. I'm a huge component of giving grace. And I think sometimes we give grace to certain establishment and things, and brands and stuff that we don't even give ourselves. For one, we don't give ourselves grace for it. And then again, like you mentioned, we've spent 4 to 6 years here of life and love and breakups and education and and good food and good parties and all of these things. But we tend to forget that, we still need to give grace where grace should be given. So I appreciate you saying that. And now to wrap this up, because this is H&L Living, which the H stands for harmony, and one of my favorite things is music. So we're going to do like a quick little lightning round of just tell me the first song that comes to mind when I mention the word that I'm going to give you, okay?
Okay.
You ready? Okay. So when you think of love, what song comes to mind?
When I think of love, this is probably really cliche, but it's the song Love.
Love?
Not by Keisha Cole, by
Music Soul Child.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
In my head, I really love that song, and I really love Music Soul Child just in general. So that's the first song that comes to mind.
Perfect. Okay, and when you think of you just being the force that you are, you being confident in you and being a force to reckon with when it comes to this higher education and being an advocate for anything, period, because a lot of we see a lot of men that kind of take over space in just kind of being higher ups, I'll say. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to just being a woman that's empowered and doing her thing, what song comes to mind for that?
This is a little ratchet. And honestly, a poem, I'm thinking of a poem, even though I know that's not your question, that comes to mind, and that's Maya Angelou. A few poems by her, but the song is Megan Thee Stallion's Savage. And the reason why is because I really like how she emphasizes classy, bougie, ratchet. Like, I can be more than just one.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just this monolith that all women are this or all women are that, or you can only be one thing. And so, while I don't really get with the raunchiness of Meg, even though I still support her because she's a Black woman and I'm like, she's still doing her thing. I think that song, when I hear it, it makes me feel like a boss. Like, it really does. Like, and I especially like the remix version with Beyonce, for the record.
Yes. So you know I'm on board with that. So okay, and last one, this is going to be kind of college edition. So okay, let's say you are out, it's homecoming, you're with your sorors. What song comes on and you are like, we are on the floor right now, we're strolling, we're dancing, we're having a good time? What song is that? Think back to your college days now.
To my college days, it's gonna be No Hands. No Hands with Waka Flocka and who is this? Don't even know the artist.
I was gonna say, I know what song you're talking about, but now you ask me the artist, I cannot tell.
Me either. But anytime we heard the song, it was automatically To the Floor. That was our theme song. When I crossed, that song was coming out, and that's the song that even now, if we're together and it comes on, they are like, everybody rushing to the floor. So yes, so that's a nice memory, but that would be it. No Hands, Waka Flocka featuring. Oh, I think Waka Flocka is featured with the main artist, but I honestly don't remember what the main artist is.
We are going to get the information and put it down at the bottom because I couldn't tell you anyway. But I so appreciate you, Kendra, for coming on and having this amazing discussion with me because it's so important. And selfishly, I needed this information because I'm kind of in a space of where I need to be doing the work to make sure that I am not one of these people with a son that has $80,000 worth of college debt when they, finish school. And I want to find all the resources that I can to make sure that he has a good education, but also we're not coming out of our pocket if we don't have to, because there are ways to do that. So
that's right.
So I want to thank you for all of these gems, all the resources you provided. I so appreciate you. We may have to do this again and get just to dive a little bit deeper, because I wanted to ask so many more questions, but I know that we're on a time restraint, but I so appreciate you. And I look forward to us doing this again.
I hope you received as much goodness out of that episode as I did. I want to send my sincere gratitude for taking up space with us on H&L Living with VaShaunna Renee. If any of this resonated with you or someone you may know, feel free to spread the love, share this episode, like, subscribe, and be sure to leave comments below. Tell me about your college experience. Did you go to an HBCU? Did you go to a PWI? Why or why not? Feel free to join in the conversation, and let's create a space of positivity, goodness, drama-free empowerment to our community. Together, we can build up a space that provides peace, love, and wellness to ourselves and those around us. So, thank you again for tuning in. I can't wait for you to see the next episode. Until next time, peace and love. Bye.